All right, Gurus, so we're back in part 2 of our lesson here. We're going through our demo of implementing Azure Firewall rules on a classically implemented Azure Firewall resource. And we have our application rule we just created in the previous lesson, our network rule, and our NAT rule on this Azure Firewall resource. And at this point, we need to validate that these are working correctly. So we're going to do this by first getting the public IP address of our Azure Firewall. And then we're going to come up to the Cloud Shell, open up a Cloud Shell instance in a PowerShell environment. And then once it's loaded up, we'll clear up our display. We're going to type in SSH, and we're going to specify that username that we use to deploy this environment. In my case, it was Cloud Chase. Then we're going to use it and we're going to paste in the public IP address of the Azure Firewall resource. Hit enter, and this is going to make an SSH connection to that Azure Firewall resource, and it's going to use that NAT rule to perform destination and network address translation to convert this public traffic to private traffic. So we'll accept the fingerprint by typing yes and hit enter, and then it's going to ask for our password. I'm going to type my password in, make sure to type in yours, and then hit enter again. And if we authenticate correctly, we now have connected into our virtual machine in the hub subnet, our hub VM01, using that DNAT rule on our firewall resource. Now let's clear up our display. That's one rule down. We got 2 more left to go. And so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to curl for HTTP, and then we're going to specify Microsoft.com. Hit enter, and what we get returned is an action of deny, and the reason is there's no rule matched. So the preceding default action here is to just deny it, and that's how Azure Firewall resource and all firewalls work. If we don't explicitly allow it, it is implicitly denied. And if we tab up here and we come back and we type www and hit enter, you see now we get the return, and that's because our rule is allowing specifically www.microsoft.com, not Microsoft.com or any other domain. Now the final rule to check here is that one that is in our network rule collection. So we'll clear up our display for this one real quick, and we'll actually just maximize our window here. And for this one, we're going to use a dig command. We're going to type dig, tac T for type, txt type. We're going to type test.dns.google.com. Then we're going to use a single quote at dns.google.single quote, hit enter, and this is going to perform that dig lookup, and it's going to tell us specifically the DNS server that we use to do so. And we see here we have 8.8.8.8, and you'll notice on the VMs that we have custom DNS servers set on the network interfaces for the VMs for 8.8.8.8, and we have this rule allowing that traffic. Again, we could use this type of rule to allow DNS traffic to maybe domain controllers we have out there serving as the DNS servers for our network, or DNS servers we may have somewhere else. The point is we're allowing DNS traffic out using that network rule collection. So now we validated that all 3 rules that we've created in all 3 rule collection types successfully work. All that's left for us to do now is make our way back to the slides to review some key takeaways. All right, Gurus, congratulations on following along in that demonstration. Now, time for our key takeaways for this demo lesson. Now, for our demo, we implemented Azure Firewall classic rules. And again, there's something to understand about Azure Firewall is that we get standard and premium firewalls, and standard and premium provide us different features, as we've learned in a previous lesson. And then with classic rules, what we're really talking about is having an Azure Firewall resource, and those firewall rules exist on that resource. We manage them from that resource. And this means that if we have multiple firewalls, we have more administrative overhead of having to manage those rules across multiple firewalls because they will each independently have their own rule collections of the various rule types, those DNAT rules, the network rules, and the application rule collections. Now, for our rule collections, remember, rule collections are based on the type, and the rule collection is where we set the priority. And inside of that rule collection will be multiple rules of the same rule type. Again, DNAT, network, and application rules. And the priority, it has to be on the collection. There is no priority for the rules. And so those rules are evaluated in order of DNAT, network, and then application rule collections. And the first matching rule terminates the traffic. Again, the important thing to remember here is the order of operations for firewalls is first we look at the DNAT rules, and if there is a match, a implicit network rule is created to allow that private traffic once it's converted from public to private. And then we look at our network rule collections for a network rule match. And then finally, we look at our application rule collections for an application rule match. All right, gurus, that is all my time for now. Thanks so much for joining me in this lesson, and I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson where we're going to be working with Azure Firewall policy-based rules. So make sure to stick around for that one.